His presidency has been described as one of the most consequential in U.S. history.
From this day forward, it's going to be only America first. America first.
Donald Trump came to power with the promise to make America great again.
The time for empty talk is over. Together, we will make America great again.
So after 4 years in office, has Trump delivered on his campaign promises? And how much will his handling of the pandemic impact his legacy? In many ways, his presidency is a once unimaginable scenario. On election week back in 2016, most major election forecasters predicted Hillary Clinton winning the election with a sweeping majority. The New York Times The Upshot blog gave Hillary Clinton a 91% chance of winning. The 538 gave Hillary Clinton a 71% chance. The Huffington Post had her at 98%. And the Princeton Election Consortium had Clinton winning at 99%. And then came the shock.
Pennsylvania goes to Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the President of the United States.
The surprising win left many aghast. Donald Trump, the former reality TV show host and New York City real estate developer, became the 45th President of the United States. 4 years on, President Donald Trump has been among the most controversial presidents in U.S. history, and just the third commander-in-chief to be impeached. His statements and responses to urgent political matters has made him dominate the news cycle more so than any other U.S. president.
I am the chosen one. Somebody had to do it. Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime.
From the early days of his campaign, and even before clinching the Republican Party nomination, Donald Trump set the tone for a very different presidential candidate.
Crazy Bernie, crooked Hillary Clinton. I call him Lion Ted. I call him Little Marco, Little Marco.
He goes on the attack often, name-calling using unfiltered language, and his style in responding to those who criticize him has been divisive.
I don't know what I said. I don't remember. He's going like, I don't remember. Maybe that's what I said.
During his 4-year term, Trump had an uneasy relationship with the press, often calling them fake news.
And the media are among the most dishonest people anywhere at any time. But they can't stop us. I'm running against the crooked media. You're fake news. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
But Trump took pride in getting away with anything he said.
They say, I have the most loyal people. Did you ever see that? Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
While many have deemed his discourse as dangerous, Trump dumbed his language down, often denouncing political correctness as a big problem in America. Trump has called COVID-19 the Chinese virus and Kung flu. He called Kim Jong-un Rocket Man during a NATO summit at a period of heightened tensions between North Korea and the United States. Trump has also equated civil rights protesters in Charlottesville, Virginia with white nationalists and far-right extremists, initially blaming the clashes on both sides before condemning the violence. But beyond the headline-grabbing rhetoric, let's take a closer look at some of his policies and promises. Remember this?
We're going to build the wall. Mexico's going to pay for the wall.
As of October 2020, 597 kilometers of the border wall have been completed according to U.S. Customs and Border Protection. But according to the Los Angeles Times, only a few miles were constructed in locations where no barrier previously existed. And Mexico has not ended up paying for the wall. Instead, the Trump administration has obtained more than $15 billion in federal funds for the wall. Trump also doubled down on another campaign promise.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States.
President Trump signed that executive order temporarily banning all refugees plus visitors from 7 majority Muslim countries. It set off protests at the airports and a flurry of legal challenges.
Within less than 100 days into his term, Trump signed an executive order that banned foreign nationals from 7 predominantly Muslim countries from entering the U.S. for 90 days. Although the first and second versions of what became known as the Muslim ban were struck down by federal judges, the Supreme Court upheld the third version of the policy in June 2018. And in 2020, the Trump administration added 6 more countries from Africa and Asia to the list, raising the total number of countries on the restricted travel list to 13. But the Muslim ban was only the start of a series of controversial decisions with overreaching impact. Just 3 months before COVID-19 began infecting people in China, the Trump administration ended a $200 million early warning program called PREDICT, designed to alert and identify potential pandemics. And once the pandemic began silently raging across the U.S., Trump's rhetoric didn't help.
The virus. They're working hard. Looks like by April, in theory, when it gets a little warmer, it miraculously goes away. I hope that's true. We have done an incredible job. We're going to continue. It's going to disappear. One day, it's like a miracle. It will disappear.
Millions of Americans have been infected by COVID-19 and hundreds of thousands have lost their lives. The pandemic created an unprecedented public health crisis in the U.S., and it exposed cracks in the healthcare system of a world superpower. Hospitals were overwhelmed amid acute shortage of medical supplies, and scores of sick people who needed immediate treatment were not able to afford the cost of urgent healthcare support in dealing with the pandemic. The U.S. economy was in good shape prior to the pandemic. Unemployment was at a 50-year low in February 2020, and economic growth was steady. In January 2020, weeks before COVID-19 lockdowns, 68% of Americans were satisfied with the state of the economy, according to a Gallup poll. But by the peak of the lockdowns, the pandemic caused millions to lose their jobs and plunged the country into economic crisis. But experts say that the economy has shown positive signs of recovery since then. Another aspect that has marked the Trump presidency is his foreign policy adventures. When it comes to foreign policy, Trump made a series of landmark decisions. He abandoned the Iran nuclear deal, calling it the worst deal ever after accusing the Iranian regime of archiving its past nuclear weapons work and continuing to enrich uranium and develop ballistic missiles. And that's just the start. Other international treaties and agreements he withdrew from include the Trans-Pacific Partnership, a group of 12 Pacific Rim countries that took 7 years to establish. Then there's the Paris Agreement, an international climate accord that the U.S. signed under the Obama administration that aims to combat global warming. He also pulled the U.S. out of the United Nations Human Rights Council after they criticized his administration for separating children from their parents at the U.S.-Mexico border. He ended NAFTA, a trade pact linking the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. He announced a new bilateral agreement with Mexico known as the U.S.-Mexico Trade Agreement. Canada later announced that it would join the New Deal. The Trump administration has also halted U.S. contributions to the United Nations aid program for Palestinian refugees. The UN agency's aid includes providing health care to approximately 3 million Palestinians and education assistance to 500,000 Palestinian children. But Trump has also made new political ties. In June 2018, Trump became the first sitting U.S. president to meet a North Korean leader and to enter North Korean territory. After a period of mutual threats and insults, relations between the two leaders took an unexpected turn. Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un signed an agreement committing to work together to build a lasting and stable peace on the Korean peninsula. But 2 years later, the negotiations have stalled, and on June 2020, the North Korean foreign minister said that prospects for peace between North and South Korea and the U.S. had faded away into a dark nightmare. Trump was also willing to turn the page on the past and make deals with the Taliban. The U.S. and Taliban signed a historic agreement in February 2020 in Qatar. The agreement set out a provisional timetable for the withdrawal of U.S. troops and foreign forces and the start of Afghan Taliban peace talks that would release thousands of Taliban prisoners. The agreement required the Taliban to reduce violence and break ties with al-Qaeda, but the agreement has not been working. The Afghan government accused the Taliban of carrying out thousands of attacks and killing hundreds of civilians since the agreement was signed. Another deal that got extensive media coverage was the long-awaited Middle East Plan, a proposal to solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that ignored the main demands of the Palestinians. The U.S. president hailed the deal as the deal of the century, but the Palestinian Authority said it was not consulted and rejected the deal almost immediately. Trump also brokered an agreement that normalizes relations between Israel, Bahrain, and the United Arab Emirates. The accords were the first agreement between Israel and Arab states since 1994. Since taking office, Trump has been taking many steps to strengthen ties with Israel. He moved the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem despite criticism, and he withdrew the U.S. from the Iran deal. Then there's the impeachment.
Article 1 is adopted. Article 2 is adopted.
Donald Trump is the third U.S. president to be impeached. His impeachment came over allegations that he sought interference from Ukraine to boost his chances of re-election by digging up damaging information on his political rival Joe Biden and his son. The Democrat-held House of Representatives impeached him on 2 charges of abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. But the Republican-held Senate acquitted Trump, ending the bid to remove him from office.
But this is what the end result is.
The Trump administration has survived turbulent events since its early days. From the Mueller report on Russian interference in the elections, to the impeachment trial, the Black Lives Matter movement and the social unrest that unfolded after, to the COVID-19 outbreak that wrecked the country's economy and health sector. And many of his staff at the White House have also fallen out with him. The exits of high-ranking officials in the Trump administration have surpassed all of his 5 predecessors. According to the Brookings Institute, President Trump's 8-team turnover was at 91% as of October 7, 2020. And some of those former staffers have not been kind to him or his legacy.
I am ashamed because I know what Mr. Trump is. He is a racist, he is a con man, and he is a cheat.
So, how will the Trump presidency be remembered?